Hello, little listeners. Another page from my diary tonight. This one is about a man who thought the airwaves were his kingdom. A king of late-night radio who filled the dark hours with his voice. But he never stopped to wonder who else was listening. Some debts don't vanish in silence. Some voices... Wait, this is the story of Razor Rick and his final broadcast. I call it Dead Air. Rick Mallory sat alone in the booth. The lights buzzed overhead. The ashtray overflowed. The stale air reeked of burnt coffee and smoke. They had canceled his show that afternoon, told him he was finished. But Rick still had the key, still had the booth, still had the microphone. At least for one more night. He cracked a beer, lit a cigarette, pressed the red button. Good evening, ghouls and goblins, he purred. This is Razor Rick, back from the dead. One last night, one last request show. Call me, and I'll play whatever your black little heart desires. The phone rang. Rick grinned. Maybe he still had fans. WKRK, you're live. A voice came thin through the static. Rick, play Highway Star. Rick froze for just a moment longer than he should have. That song, he and Frank had blasted it 100 times on their drunken nights out, long before that last one ended in twisted metal and flashing lights. The voice didn't sound like Frank. It couldn't be, but the request stirred something in him all the same. Rick cleared his throat and forced a laugh. Highway Star it is. The guitars screamed through the speakers, and the overhead light flickered once, as though the booth itself remembered. Rick leaned back, muttering to himself. Weird pick for a night like this? He took another swig of beer, but the unease stayed with him. Just nerves, he told himself. Just nerves. The phone rang again. WKRK, Razor Rick, what'll it be? A woman's voice came through low. Play Only the Good Die Young, for old time's sake. Rick's chest tightened. That song, his ex-wife's song. The memory hit hard. The canoe rocking on the dark lake, both of them drunk, her laughter echoing across the water. The boat tipped. He surfaced, choking and thrashing for shore, but she had struck her head as they went under. By the time he realized she wasn't beside him, the lake had already closed over her. No, he muttered, slamming the phone down. The booth hummed. A damp chill crept into the air. Static bled from the speakers, but underneath it came a faint, steady drip. 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 The carpet darkened around Rick's shoes, as though water was seeping up through the floor. The door handle rattled. Shadows rippled across the glass like light beneath a lake. Rick shouted, panicked, "Stop it!" The bulb above him burst, a spray of sparks that hissed like raindrops. Panicked, he shoved the tape in and hit play. Instantly the dripping stopped. The shadows vanished. The song carried on smooth, as if nothing had happened. Rick slumped in his chair, sweat sliding down his temple. He told himself it was a prank, some sick joke, but the smell of burnt wires hung thick in the booth, and his hands wouldn't stop trembling. The phone rang again. This time, a ragged male voice wheezed through. Long-time listener, first-time caller, play Black number 1. Rick swallowed hard. That song. He remembered spinning it during one of his 13 Scariest Songs marathons. And he remembered the obituary the next day. Some kid found dead with a needle still in his arm. Rick's set list, blaring while he overdosed. Rick shook his head. No more. The vents roared, icy air blasted from above. The turntables spun on their own, the phone sparked in his hand. Rick yelped, panicked, "Jesus!" He jammed the tape in and hit play, and just like that, silence, stillness. The room fell quiet again. Rick cradled his burnt hand, breathing in ragged gasps. He stared at the phone like it was alive, waiting to bite him again. The silence felt worse than the noise, like the booth itself was holding its breath. Another call, this one was faint. A child's voice, small and trembling. "Daddy, please, play my song." Rick's throat closed. That lullaby, her lullaby, the fire, the smoke, his cigarette left burning. He'd made it out. She hadn't. Rick backed away from the desk. "No, not you, please, not you." Smoke curled from the corners of the booth. Then the fire alarm erupted, shrieking overhead, filling the room with its harsh, relentless scream. The room grew hotter. Sweat slid down his face. The voice begged again, weak and broken. "Please, Daddy." Rick dropped to his knees. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." He clutched the mic, crying, and forced himself to sing the lullaby. His voice cracked, breaking apart with every word, but he kept going, half song, half weeping. The smoke thinned, the alarm cut off, and his shaking voice filled the booth until it was all that remained. The calls came faster now, one after another, every voice from his past clawing through the line, each with a song tied to their death, each demanding he play it. Rick screamed, frantic. "Stop, no more." The static swelled. The glass rattled. The booth shuddered. The clock struck midnight. Then silence. Morning came. The station manager unlocked the booth. He found it empty. The chair was still warm. The microphone still humming softly, as if someone had only just stepped away. On the console, the playlist had frozen, looping one track, "Don't Fear the Reaper," over and over. And so Razor Rick got the audience he always wanted. Callers who never hang up, voices that never fade, and silence that never returns. Another page written. Another fool remembered. My father says I shouldn't enjoy it so much. But tell me, little listeners, didn't you enjoy it too? Until the next page, keep your radios close. The dead are always on the line. I turned a page in my diary tonight and found a seed pressed flat between the paper. Seeds are funny things, my little hauntlings. Sometimes they grow into roses, and sometimes they grow into monsters. Gardens are liars, you know. They look so peaceful from the street. Rows of tulips nodding in the sun, roses curling their velvet petals, hedges trimmed neat as soldiers. But under the soil things fester, worms crawl, roots twist, bones settle. People think burying something means it's gone, that the ground forgets, but it doesn't. It drinks everything in, cruelty, secrets, the things no one wants left on the surface, and sooner or later, it grows them back. Tonight's tale is about Mr. Kavanaugh, a man who pruned and poisoned, who tried to keep his garden pure. He thought beauty came from killing whatever didn't belong, but the earth was listening, and the earth has a way of answering back. I call this entry in my diary The Neighbor. Mr. Kavanaugh lived at the end of Maple Lane, in a house with curtains always drawn and a yard trimmed sharper than a blade. The neighbors never saw him smile. Children whispered that he was a monster, and most grown-ups agreed, though they wouldn't say it too loud. He was known for shouting at paper boys if they cut across his grass, spraying cats with the hose, and throwing rocks at dogs that dared bark at his fence. His garden was his temple, and anything that disturbed it, man, beast, or child, was his enemy. Kavanaugh's pride were his roses, tall, crimson, flawless. He'd tell anyone who came too close, "They're perfect because I don't tolerate pests." Purity takes discipline, and discipline to him meant poison. He kept tins of it lined on a shelf in his shed, bait boxes, traps. He was proud of the collection. He called it discipline, and sneered that the neighbors were too soft to understand. One evening, as the sun bled red across the hedges, Kavanaugh spotted a black cat nosing in the dirt near his roses. Its paws left little marks in the soil. It yawned and curled on his mulch as if mocking him. He clenched his jaw. "Vermin," he spat. That night, he set out a dish of meat laced thick with poison. He sat on his porch in the dark, waiting. When the cat lapped at it, he smiled. When it gave a pitiful cry and collapsed, he leaned back, satisfied. With his shovel, he dug a shallow grave beneath the roses, dropped the limp body in, and patted the earth flat. "Good fertilizer," he muttered. The next morning, the roses were immaculate, petals stretched wide, colors sharp, as if painted. Too perfect to be natural, Kavanaugh nodded to himself. "Strong stock," he said, as though he hadn't fed them death. That night, he woke to scratching, soft, like claws on wood. He checked the window. The garden swayed in the night breeze. The days passed, and the garden flourished. Vines thickened, hedges spread. The grass grew twice as fast as it had before. The roses seemed almost eager, bending toward the house as though listening. But with growth came sounds. He swore he heard mewling at night. A thin, pitiful cry. Another night it was a bark, then a whimper. Kavanaugh began patrolling the yard with his cane after sundown, muttering about neighbors, trespassing. He caught no one. Only the flowers seemed to lean toward him, their blossoms heavy with red. Then, one midnight, the sound was different. Not a mewl, not a bark. A groan, a deep, low shifting like soil tearing. Kavanaugh pulled his curtain back. His breath caught. The garden looked still in the moonlight, but the sound came again, low, muffled, heavy. Something turning beneath the soil. He stood frozen, listening. The sound rose louder, closer. A groan of earth being forced apart. Unable to ignore it, he grabbed his cane and slipped out the back door. The damp air clung to his skin as he stepped into the yard, the grass wet and soft beneath his shoes. He held his breath. The sound swelled beneath him. The ground trembled. Then, with a tearing crack, the soil split open. Roots burst upward, knotting together into shapes no plant should ever take. Bones tangled in ivy, ribs laced with thorns, skulls set like ornaments lining vines. The figure rose, slow and creaking. A patchwork of roots and remains, hollow and hungry. Its eyes glowed faint as fireflies. Its mouth opened, thorn-lined, and from it spilled the cries of every animal Kavanaugh had ever poisoned. He staggered back, clutching his cane. No, this isn't real." The thing lurched forward, dragging its root-bound limbs. Kavanaugh bolted toward the shed, heart hammering. He flung the door open, snatched up his shovel, and charged back into the yard. He swung wildly, hacking at the vines with desperate strength. But wherever he struck, more growth sprouted. Vines lashed up the handle, wrapping his arms, digging into his skin. He screamed, dropped the shovel, and stumbled. Roots coiled around his legs, pulling him down, dragging him toward the churned soil. "No, let me go," he shrieked, clawing at the dirt as he sank. The roses bent low, brushing his face like mourners, his cries muffled, then silenced. By dawn there was no sign he'd ever lived there at all. But the garden, oh, the garden thrived. By morning the hedges were lush, the grass a deep velvet green, the roses fat with crimson bloom. Neighbors passing by slowed, marveling. What's he feeding them? They wondered aloud. They never knocked, they never asked, and Mr. Kavanagh's curtains stayed drawn, his windows dark. The only thing that answered was the soil, thick and satisfied, drinking in the sun. And there you go, my little hauntlings. The garden bloomed, richer than ever before. The neighbors praised the roses, whispered about the miracle growth, but none of them asked where old Mr. Kavanagh had gone. They didn't need to, did they? Because you and I already know. Cruelty makes the best compost. Every pet he poisoned, every kindness he refused, every dark thought he buried, it all took root. And when it came back hungry. My father says the earth is patient, that it remembers everything we hide in it. But I think it does more than remember. I think it savors. So mind your gardens, my little hauntlings. Be careful what you bury, because when the ground grows tired of waiting, the harvest might just be you. Now close this page with me. Another waits to be turned, another night, another story, and I'll be here with you, my little hauntlings, listening